We are going to be looking at scopes to speculum. So we're going to be talking about the various scopes that we'll find in veterinary medicine, as well as the different types of speculums. So we'll write down the name of the instrument, what it is, as well as what it is used for. So that is how our notebook should be set up. We'll go ahead and go to our link. The first scope we're going to talk about, or many of us are all familiar with, the stethoscope. So we have the stethoscope. It is a small disc-shaped resonator connected to two tubes connected to two earpieces. We use it for auscultation or listening of the lungs, the hearts, the GI tract. So we can listen all over the body with the stethoscope. Here is our image. This happens to just have a single diaphragm, but we do have scopes that have two diaphragms, one large, one little, and then we just click it on and off by rotating that diaphragm head. So if you don't hear anything, rotate that head and it should open it up. Next, we have an autoscope or an Laparoscope. This is looking in the ears. So autoscopes are elongated magnification devices with a light, and they inspect the ear canal. So here is our autoscope. We will have various ear cannulas that we'll put on there so we can see into ears that have a longer canal. Next, we have an ophthalmoscope. Ophthalmoscope is looking at our eyes. So again, it's an instrument with a light shining through small lenses and used to inspect the interior of the eye. Here is our ophthalmoscope. Oftentimes we'll have the head of an ophthalmoscope and the head of an autoscope are interchangeable, and they're on a handle base that will have either batteries or an outlet charger, and that'll be plugged in. So you only need one handle, but you can then use it for both instrument heads. Next, we have an endoscope. An endoscope is a rigid or flexible tube that has a camera and light mounted at the end. We use these to inspection of internal organs and or to assist with operations and or biopsies. We may have animals that have something stuck in their trachea or their esophagus, and so we can use an endoscope to help alleviate that without having to go into invasive surgery. If an animal has swallowed something or ingested something, then we can use an endoscope. So here is the actual handle of the endoscope of what you would be using to maintain control, and then the camera's on the other end. Next, we have a laparoscope. So laparoscope, again, is a thin tube with a camera and light at the end. These are actually going to be more rigid in structure, so we're inserting them into the abdominal cavity to assist in views and possible tissue samples. So here's the laparoscopes. So we have the little handles at the end because we have at the very tips little prongs, so we're able to collect tissue samples if need be. Otherwise, here's just where that light is as well in camera. Next, we have a laryngoscope. So a laryngoscope is curved metal endoscope with a light. And so this is going to be inspecting our larynx and assist in passing endotracheal tubes. So a laryngoscope, again, is a metal curved endoscope with a light, and it is going to help us pass endotracheal tubes. So here's that handle, and then we have different size heads that we can put on it. Right here is the light. So that light is helping you, again, view that larynx and that entryway to be able to pass the endotracheal tube. Cats especially, we find these very useful because their mouths are so small. Dogs, depending on the canine, you may or may not use them. It's best to learn how to use them because you are going to then be needing your hands, right? So one hand is going to be on the tongue and the laryngoscope, and then the other hand is going to be actually passing the endotracheal tube. So it's definitely a skill to master. Next, we have the actual endotracheal tube. So the endotracheal tube is a plastic tube that has an inflatable cuff. We use it to place it in the trachea to maintain unobstructed passageway to deliver oxygen and anesthetic agent to our animal. So with the endotracheal tubes, we have a little balloon right here that we inflate, and then that inflates this balloon at the end, and then this is going to apply slight pressure on the trachea to ensure that there is no air that's passing through. So we do need to size our animals and give the best fit that we can. So you generally will have 2 to 3 endotracheal tubes out before you go to intubate an animal, and that tube size is dictated by the mass of the animal as well as that neck length. So there's a few different things that go into measuring for an endotracheal tube. But again, this little at the base end, that blue, you are going to use just a plain syringe to inflate, and then you also need to remember to deflate those before you excavate a patient. Otherwise, you can tear and rip their trachea. So that is our endotracheal tubes. Next, now we're going into our speculums. So here we have a large animal oral speculum. So we do use speculums to keep that mouth open. So these are large metal devices designed to open the mouth. We use to assist us in medical examinations of the oral cavity, as well as stabilizing jaw during procedures. So this is what we would think of for an equine or for a horse or a cow and bovine species. So this is going to help open that mouth for us. And next we have a small animal oral speculum. So these are going to be thinking of things to use for your canines. Again, still assisting with medical examinations and stabilizing the jaw. And so this actually is going to be one used for a rabbit. So it is nice and tiny, and so we can just put that in a rabbit's mouth, and chinchilla, guinea pigs, we'll use those to be able to see that oral cavity. And then we have the vaginal speculum. So our vaginal speculum is used to open up the vaginal canal, and it allows entry into that body cavity for examinations, artificial insemination, if you're going to be doing a swab. So that is a vaginal speculum. Next, we have a tonal meter, tonometer. A tonometer is a tool that is going to be used to measure the pressure of a specific body part. We generally use these to measure the pressure of an eye. So we do light taps right at the center of the pupil of the eye. So we have to be very careful while restraining our patient for these procedures, because if there's already a buildup of pressure, we definitely don't want to cause further damage, potentially popping that eye out. But also, if we're holding with too much pressure, then that is going to give us a false read on our tonal meter. So you need to be very careful as you are restraining for those procedures. And so that is a tonal meter. It's just almost like a pen. We put a little rubber protector on that, and then that way it's sterile going into the eye, and we're just tapping. You do 3 taps so it can get an average pressure read, and then that pressure read is actually right on that little screen right there. And those are our scopes to speculums.